Hi everyone, and you are welcome to Aggregation Relationship lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss the following use case. We will assume that we have a class of college and a class of teacher, and there is a relationship between these two classes. So what's this relationship and how to implement this relationship in Python? This is what we will learn about in this lecture. So let's get started. In the previous lecture, we have seen that we have two types of association relationship, which are composition and aggregation. And mainly in this lecture, we are talking about aggregation relationship. In this lecture, I'll start by a quick overview to the association relationship types. Then I'll give you a quick reminder to what aggregation relationship is. Then I'll show you how to implement this relationship in Python. And finally, I'll end up this lecture by a quick summary. And as a quick reminder to what aggregation relationship is, we see that in this relationship, the component class can exist independently of the composite class. And a simple example about this, the relationship between college and teacher. And the question now, how to define this relationship in Python? First of all, you have to define the class of the component class. Next, you have to define the composite class. And as you see here, now the component class object is just a parameter inside the constructor method of the composite class. And this parameter accepts the value of none because, as I mentioned, component class could exist independently of the composite class. Next, usually we define an object from component class if I want to use it anywhere. Or I can use that object as an argument value to the parameter that the composite class needs. And you will note here that defining the component object is outside of the composite class. And this makes sense because, as we see, the component class object can exist independently out of the context of the composite class object. Now let's move to Jupyter Notebook in order to see how to implement this relationship in real Python example. Alright, now let's see how we can implement the aggregation relationship. As we mentioned in the introduction, we will implement the following case study in which we assume that we have a relationship between teacher class and college class. Let's start firstly by creating the component class, which is in this case teacher class. And you will see it's a very simple class like the client class that we already implemented in the previous lecture. We have 3 instance attributes, which are first name, last name, and age. And we have one instance method, which is getDetails, which is responsible for printing the details of this teacher. First of all, let me define an object from this teacher class, and it's very simple. Let me say teacher, and here we have John Doe. His age is 35. And let's print the details of this teacher simply by running this method, which is getDetails. And if you run, you will get this result. You will see that I call this relationship aggregation because now, even though I haven't the composite class yet, I'm able to create an object from the component class, which is teacher in this case. And if we think in the reality about this, you will see that yes, it's possible to have a teacher class without college class because you could have a freelance teacher, for example, in which this teacher is not related to any college. Now let's continue our example and let's create the composite class. And this class is quite simple. It's named college. It has 2 instance attributes, which are name and teachers. And you will see here teachers by default is none. And if it's none, I will make the initial value to be an empty list. And here we assume that when we create an object from the college class, if the user hasn't passed any teacher list to this class, so the teachers list will be empty. Quite simple. We will assume that we have one instance method, which is add a new teacher, which will accept a teacher, and its job is to append this new teacher to the teachers list that belong to this college object. And the last method, which is getDetails, it's just a method to print the details of the college and its teachers. In this case, we will print the name, and then we will print the details for each teacher. Now let's define an object for this college, and let's say its name college1, and let's say college.getDetails. Print here. Run. You will see that the college name will be printed and then this string, which is teachers list, will be printed, but nothing below this teachers list has been printed. Why? Because so far my college has no one teacher. How to append the teacher to this college is quite easy. All what you have to say is college.add a new teacher, and let's append to this list the teacher that we have here, which is teacher. So if I take this name and put it here, and let me take now this here, this line, and let me paste it here. And if you run right now, you will see that I'll get the college name again, and then under the teacher list, I'll get the name and the age of this teacher because I already appended this teacher to the teachers list. So, the takeaway from this example that when you have aggregation relationship, you can create an object from the component class even though there is no composite class at all, because this object can exist independently of the composite class. And that's all. Thank you. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. Mainly, we've talked about aggregation relationship, and we see that in this relationship, the component class object can exist independently of the composite class. And in order to implement this relationship, you have to define two classes, component and the composite class. And as we have seen, defining the object of component class can be out of the composite class because it can exist independently. Now please, I need you to refer to the challenges available in the lecture resources in order to practice what you have learned so far. Thank you so much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.